9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All 3 engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and lift off.
Coach on Fire Radio.
Welcome to Luminescent Life. Ignite your luminescent life, intuitive business mastery and SaaS with your host, Dr. Elena Estanol. I am super excited to be here today with you. I have a really, really awesome guest with me. His name is Steve Cozart. And I must say that I'm just going to apologize that the broadcast is starting a little late. We had a few technical difficulties, and so we've had to go from one studio to the next, and so we are here and we're excited to be here with you. And I want to just take a moment and tell you a little bit about Steve, because he is just an overall amazing guy. I just love him. I met him at an event, and then it's like I just continued meeting him over and over. And so I just want to tell you. I'm gonna pull up his bio here. So I love this. It's like your grandmother gave you your first camera when you were really young. And then from that, you sort of started really kind of admiring and understanding the idea of form and beauty and light. And that sort of started shaping a lot of who you are and what's happening, right? And so you've been attracted to this idea of lifestyle photography for quite some time, and you are amazing. So one of the things that Steve calls himself the camera guy for the camera shy, and I love this, and I know that you're going to tell us a whole lot about this, and how being camera shy shows up in people and that kind of thing. But I think that one of the things that I would say is your gift is that you are able to really tune in to the beauty of people, and then know the moment of when to capture that perfect moment, and I saw it. I mean, I saw it when you took this amazing picture of my husband, and we were taking video as well, because I was taking pictures of him, and I never got that picture. And I was like, when did that happen? And then I was reviewing the video footage, and literally it was less than a second, and I was like, whoa, I was blown away. So anyway, I'm so delighted to have you here with us.
Well, thanks for having me, Dr. Elena. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks to you and to everybody who's joining us today. It's a blustery, crazy, windy day, so hopefully that doesn't blow our power out today.
Yes, me too.
They're warning about high winds and things like that, but that's okay. We're in California. We need it. We need the rain.
Right. Well, I think that it's just, it's difficult partly because you guys are used to having this perfect weather all the time, whereas, some of us mortals that live in other states, we don't have that perfect weather all the time.
Yeah, we're a little bit spoiled, that's for sure. For sure. Yeah, speaking of that picture of Shane, that's pretty amazing, because I remember being what's the word? I kept waiting for a big smile, and he was talking about something quite serious, which is probably why.
Yeah.
But I had the camera, and I was waiting, my finger on the trigger, and then I saw him, like you said, literally half a second of one big smile, and I got it, and I was like, yay!
It was astounding. And part of what, so I am an observer of people, I've always been obsessed with understanding people. And so I love really observing people do what they do best. I feel like one of my gifts is being able to recognize the brilliance in other people. And, just watching you was beautiful and was fascinating, because there's this finesse and this patience and this art that comes to knowing where do I stand and when do I have to crouch down, and when do I need to stand up on a table or a chair, and and it's like, and you're there, and I'm thinking he must be taking like zillions of pictures, and then when I saw you, and I saw you capturing that picture, it dawned on me, it's like, it's actually not how much you're actually pressing the trigger. It's actually about pressing it at just the right time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm also an observer of people, and learning how to find the right time to shoot, especially in an event or in a group setting where people are talking. A lot of times when people are sharing, they're not smiling, but they'll smile after they're done sharing.
Yeah.
So if they're on a microphone and they're in a crowd and they're talking to the host or something like that, they'll be very serious when they're talking, and then when they're done talking, they'll smile. That's kind of a visual cue to have the other person then respond. Or sometimes it's even in almost a subconscious apology, like, that's my opinion, and they're kind of waiting to hear if the other person is going to agree with them or not, so there's to smile. I've learned a lot of ways. What's that?
Like waiting for approval.
Yeah, that's the word. Waiting for an agreement or approval, and it's quite an interesting. I'm an acting coach also. And a lot of when people are on camera during an audition or during what's called their slate, when they're auditioning, and before the audition comes the slate where they're introducing themselves, and they're often very, very serious. My name's Steve, and I'm 5'11" tall, and I'm here to audition for the role of Bob. And then they smile. So it's something similar to that.
That makes sense. So Steve, tell me a little bit. Tell me a little bit more about the just how you got started. You said like your grandma gave you this camera, but I'd really love to hear a little bit about like what ignited this thing for you.
It's wow. Well, yeah, when I was 9 or so, my parents had split up, and we moved. My mom and my sister and I moved to close to where my grandparents were living. And my mom's the only child, so it seemed like that we were always kind of around them anyway. And so when my mom would work, I would often go over and hang with my grandparents. And I wasn't necessarily handling the whole thing of the divorce very well at that age. And so I wasn't really acting out, but I just wasn't really dealing with things, And so my grandmother thought, to keep me occupied, she bought me a camera. And it was it wasn't nothing particularly difficult or complicated, but it was just a camera. And I would go outside and take pictures of basically nothing. And this is, long before digital. And so she said, well, let's take a picture of this fence. And what do you see in the fence? Or let's get down on the ground and take a picture of the grass and see what you see there. And what would you want to photograph in the grass? And I would start thinking about detail, and I would think, wow, I want to shoot the way the grass grows in different directions and the different sizes. And when the pictures come back, I can't wait to see how that looks. And then it went to, and I started gaining an appreciation for natural patterns and deviation from patterns and grain of wood. And so then she started having me photograph her. What do you see in my hand? What do you see in my arm? What do you see in my face? And what would you want? And she wasn't a photographer by any means, but it became this thing where she became my favorite model.
Yeah. She was your muse.
She was. And it was so incredible to wait for the pictures that come back and see and she would, she was never particularly happy with her overall appearance, you might say. But I think she really saw things differently also with these photos coming back. And this is a little 110 Kodak camera from the 70s. Oops, I just aged myself, dated myself. Well, fast forward throughout my teen years and even into college, where I began having better cameras and getting kind of more involved in it. Her story of her life was in those photos with me. And
so beautiful that she found something like that then was guiding you through it. I think that's so beautiful, like that it ignited this artistic perspective in you.
It was definitely ignited, and it carried through to everything else I did, where I would notice people, I would notice patterns. I would, when I began being interested in acting and drama, that would be part of the stuff I would write or portray.
Yeah.
Well, so this has kind of an interesting finish, which is part of what ignited all of this, is when my grandmother was about 85, maybe even a little bit younger than that. She was living with my mother, and she announced to everyone that for no reason can anyone take her photo any longer.
Oh, wow.
And and if cameras were to come out, during a family function, or to be even near her, she would go back to her room and stay there and not come out. And this was kind of confusing because I know, Grandma, this is our thing. This is
right.
This is what we do. And she basically gave me a bunch of reasons, but it just came down to she felt like that she was disappearing and didn't want to be documented. She didn't want any more photos of herself. Mm-hmm. And 12 years or 15 years later, whatever it was, when she passed away, we didn't have any photos mm-hmm. of her that looked like her.
Yeah.
That we could use for the funeral. We didn't have anything, and it was heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. It was definitely heartbreaking for us, but I knew that in my grandmother's mind, she was heartbroken as well, because this is something that we had done our whole lives together. Mm-hmm. And so after the funeral, and as when you do things for people after they pass, my mother and I were going through her stuff, and we were in a bank, and in the safe deposit box was just little things here and there. And in the back of one of the boxes was this square piece of paper. And I looked at it, and it was a photo that I had taken of my grandmother. I don't even know when. And it was not necessarily a remarkable photo, but I flipped it over, and on the back it said, "This is my favorite photo of my entire lifetime. Thank you, Stephen."
Oh. Oh.
And I get emotional because that's when I didn't really know till later how to verbalize it or put it into words, but that's what ignited the fire in me, that everyone deserves to have a photo of themselves that they love so much, that they treasure so much, and they want to keep for their legacy, that they put it away like treasure. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this is what I want. It became a reality later, put it into words, but this is what I want to do for people, especially women, because men, we're not so wrapped up in that, but women especially there's so much pain around. They call it camera shy, but there's so many different levels of pain that are behind that word.
Yeah. And I'm just so touched and so moved, both by your story and also by the, just the feeling that it ignited for you to be able to create that experience for women. Before I started working on with business people and helping them build their businesses and doing high performance in that area, I built this integrative wellness practice I did peak performance, but I worked a lot with athletes and young women, and many of them had severe eating disorders, and this self-loathing and the criticism and judgment that they hold about their bodies and who they are and how they see themselves. And partly because I went through that process, so I felt I felt connected to I felt that way, and I don't feel that way about me, and I want to give that experience of freedom to people to feel really embodied and confident, and that they are ready to go conquer the world. Yes. And I'm just connecting to that because that's exactly what I heard from you. I want, you want to really capture that moment for people and help people see themselves in that beautiful light that you can see that they might not even be seeing themselves in.
It's true. I think that the mirror is probably one of the worst things that was ever invented, because think about what we had before we had mirrors. Basically, if we saw ourselves, it was in water, mm-hmm. And it wasn't even about that. And we would just think the human beings would communicate directly with intent to communicate so that things can move forward in life. But when the mirror came, we began to wonder how the other person was viewing us, if they saw us like we saw ourselves, and it became this barrier in communication. And I think it causes a lot of people to not move life and business and feelings and relationships forward, because we're so wrapped up in how we think the other people are viewing us and judging us in normal everyday interactions. So it's kind of
totally. Like I had this experience at Bill Barron's event a couple of years ago, where I knew that part of my path, and I've shared different pieces of my story, but I knew that part of my path was stepping into the spotlight, and one of my biggest issues was visibility. And I remember being at his event, and he said something about, what do you guys need? And I said, I need courage. And he said, why? And I said, I need courage to be able to really fully step in and be visible. And so he he of course drags me into the stage. There's 700 people there. And he's like, now you're going to do exactly what I'm doing. And I froze. I couldn't do anything, but he didn't let me go, obviously, he sat me down, and then he was trying to do the same thing. And then he had this woman that he was trying to coach, and nothing that he was saying was getting to her. And she was crying and she was upset. And then in that moment, they had come and given me a microphone. In that moment, I was like, I know what I need to tell this woman. And it was all of a sudden, I stopped really thinking about me. And what are these people going to think about me? And how am I going to sound? And all of a sudden, it's I need to deliver this message to her. And then I immediately grabbed that microphone and said it, and she was like, that's exactly what I needed to hear. Thank you so much, And he was like, okay, my work is done. But it was in the moment, right? It was actually the experience of realizing this shit's not about me. It's
exactly right. It's one of the things when I'm working, I'm a photographer, but I'm a coach, right? I'm working with people on their visibility, and I'm working with people who are dealing with this feeling of I'm not enough, and I'm being judged, and why me, and who cares about me, and what do I have to say? And what this is doing is keeping them from sharing what they came here to do good in the world. It's keeping that within their own mind, body, and spirit, instead of being able to go out and affect the world and ignite change in the world in the way that they're meant to do. And it's got to be crushing to the soul to let one little thing like putting yourself on stage or in front of a camera, or if that's the one thing that's keeping you from changing the world and generational impact. Wow. So this is what I'm all about. I'm about removing self-doubt from the planet, generational increase in self-respect, self-esteem, especially in women, so that this world can elevate.
So you hadn't said this, I have to say this, we hadn't talked about this, we had connected, but we hadn't talked about this specifically. And I just love it, because I have this belief that, that self-love is the way to world peace. And I say that, people always look at me but I feel when we can really truly love ourselves and not just appreciate, but really embrace who we are, we don't have to put other people down. We don't have to prove that we're better than somebody else. We don't have to make, all of a sudden we can just be who we are and uplift other people and shine the light on other people, and we can be happy.
We make better decisions when we love ourselves. We make such much better decisions, and we give better advice, and we're better examples for our sons, daughters, and other people. And then this is what I'm talking about, generational impact. Because when you are a mother and you have self-worth and self-love, and you're making decisions and an example for your daughter, who then sees that and emulates that, so much better decisions that are being made for ourselves and for others. And so, yes, that is the secret to world peace and transformation of this universe. It really is.
Totally. And I love it. I just love that, we connected in that way. We hadn't even talked about it, and we're totally in the same. I love that.
Photography is just the medium that I happen to love and use for transformation. When someone says to me, and this is part of the talk I give is, we're the only ones who are obsessed about our photos. When people come to me and say, make me look younger, make me look cute. And I said, you know what? You're going to get really amazing photos. That's not what yes, you hired me for this. You're going to get great photos, but really that's not the transformation. Mm-hmm. They're the diploma, the record of what you're going to go through from the beginning to the end of this. Your transformation of loving being in front of the camera and having confidence and the knowledge that you'll know what to do, not only in front of my lens, but in front of anyone's lens. That's what you're purchasing here. That's what you're investing in. You're going to get great photos. Don't worry. That's not what you're buying. So,
and I also have to say that there's, I think that we take for granted photography, you know, and that it is not just a photo. Like photography is really, you know, it is a transformation all in itself, like you're saying, the entire process, but it's also this work of art, you know, like you, in some ways I feel like I'm jealous in a good way, you know, like, because, you know, we do a similar thing, right? Like it's about really being able to see and highlight the gifts in people, but you are able to capture it and show it to them in a moment. Do you see what I'm saying? Which is what I'm saying. And that I think is just such a beautiful gift, you know, and we forget, like I was, this is a good example because, you know, my husband is beautiful and wonderful and he's not artistic. And one day we came out and there's all of these leaves on the ground. And I thought, oh, that would be such a beautiful photo, you know? And I'm like, honey, take a picture of me, will you? And I like hand him the camera and I lay down on the leaves and he's like taking photos and he's like, you look dead. You know? Like, you look dead. And then I look at the photos and I'm like, yeah, I look dead. So like, he captured exactly what he saw.
You're so funny. You look dead.
And so,
go ahead.
You know, so I think that there's also so much of an art to being able to capture the beauty of a moment and being able to like distill it through that, you know, through an image.
And it's a shame these days, you know, having digital photography is great, but we in this digital age of, you know, taking 10 pictures at a time and picking the one that you like, or maybe, you know, it's kind of this disposable idea about photography. So my goal, especially in this next year, is, you know, people don't print photos much anymore. They're just living on devices, right, and they're living in the cloud. So to have something that we treasure in, you know, hanging on a wall in our home, right, or in our office or in our space, that's become less of a thing. And I'm really focused this year on providing people with beautiful, beautiful portraits that they can hang proudly and live in the space. Because you're right, this is a document of a moment in time that is so special that on our phones, it gets buried after months and months and years of, and then you forget it's there, and maybe you don't really do anything with it. And people deserve to have a reminder of how beautiful they are inside and out.
Well, and it transports us, right? Like that moment, like being able to look through, it'll transport you back to that experience.
Exactly right. And our brain doesn't know the difference. We're there again. We're there again. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what I'm all about, is helping people to love and get out of their own way. You know, we're the only ones who obsess about how we look in photography. We have to have good photos because they're part of, especially if we're in business and entrepreneurs, we need to have them. But good means quality. Mm-hmm. So, you know, 71% of people are still using old, outdated photos of themselves on their online profiles. They're using stuff that they may have loved from 10, 15, 20 years ago, you know, or it's a section of a crop photo of them standing next to somebody else. And this is what they're, you know, they're like, you know, there are a lot of these.
Yeah.
And some even people are even using older, like black and white stuff. And so it's, in a business, you know, we talk about how we feel inside. Mm-hmm. And I always tell people, yeah, okay, camera shy. Well, good, Steve. So camera shy, I need to get over it. Big deal. But okay, so you've taught me how to no longer be camera shy, but how do I present myself to the camera? I need to know how to look good too. So that's another part of what we do. Mm-hmm. You know, when I speak on stage, the very first thing I do when I get up on stage, so there's 400 people in the audience. This has happened in London just not very long ago. I got up and I said, okay, everybody, I'm not like the normal speaker that gets up and asks you to turn off your cell phones. I'd like you all to turn on your cell phones. Actually, there I said mobiles, because this is, turn on your mobiles. And they're all kind of wondering, and I said, now everybody stand up. So everyone's standing up, and now turn the camera app on your phone. And they're kind of looking at each other and looking at me like, what's happening? And I said, everyone, point your cameras to the stage and take my photo. Uh-huh. And they're like laughing and everyone's like, what are you talking? And I have them all take my photo and I'll say, now do it again. And they're doing it again. And I'll say, hashtag Steve Cozart, post it to social media right now. And they're like, wait, everyone's laughing. Can you just do it, please? And so, and I said, you know what? You just took 400 to 800 photos of me and you posted them on the internet. Are they all good photos? I don't care. Are they all in focus? I don't know. Don't care. And the point behind this is not to impress them, but to say 400 to 800 photos just hit the internet, hashtagged or tagged to me. The people who are following my brand, following me, who are interested in what I'm doing, just had this huge influx, a trend, you might say, of my name, my brand for my business. Huge amount of visibility.
Right.
Huge. I don't care if they're all good photos.
Well, and I think that even I'm thinking about like even taking that a little step further is that my guess is that every single one of those photographs is going to be different.
They are.
Again, through the lens and the perspective of that particular person. And then that's like part of the beauty of, it's like not just any photographer. Like it is, why somebody might hire you. It's like, I'm thinking, I'm even going back to like the story with your grandma. And I'm like, wow, like this is like, he has been taught to look at beauty and that detail in this way. And that's really what I'm going to be getting, right? Like that is just so incredibly unique.
It's about the detail. And then at the same time, it's about forgetting all of that after you have the detail and you have all the preparation. And then it's about just loving the moment, loving that feeling of this is so effortless. So many times we're done and people, we're done? We did it? And I'll say, yeah, there's 800 photos here. I can't wait to see it, And they're so excited because we've had such a great time.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think that photography can be. The experience of photography can be knowing that you're going to feel amazing and you're going to have something that you can treasure forever and or use in your business. It's when I'm working with people, especially business people, and coaches and people who have kind of programs that they're offering on a regular ongoing basis, what we do with them is we look at their business plan for the year and we say, okay, what's your business plan look like? When are you rolling this out? What's it look like? What's it sound like? What are the colors? What do you want to say here? And then we'll plan photos for the photo shoot and we'll preload all of those photos for the year. We'll do a shoot or maybe a couple of shoots so that that way, because when a lot of entrepreneurs, when they have something new rolling out, the last thing they think about is what are the photos going to look like.
Right.
They go back and use the same one over and over and over again. And we're not talking necessarily just headshots.
Right.
We're talking about lifestyle photography.
Yeah.
Photography that tells stories, that has a narrative, that has meaning. And sometimes those photos aren't even of you. Maybe they're of the people you're affecting, or maybe it's you with other people having a relationship moment. It could be something that's a bit more artsy where, it's not even of you, it's of maybe just your hands doing, you never know. It's what it is that each person wants to do, because when we are, let's just say I've never met you, but I'm following you online. I've maybe even bought something that you offered online and I'm following you and I see what's happening in your life.
Right.
And I see what's happening in your business and the people that you're affecting, the places that you're going. And it looks like you, it sounds like you if it's video, and I want to be part of that circle.
Right.
And it's so important for us to realize that everything that we're posting becomes part of our visual brand equity, which means everything that we're posting out there affects our brand in a positive, negative, or neutral way. And that's every photo.
Absolutely.
So keeping that in mind as we're releasing it and putting it out there, especially when it comes to our business. Because by the time, let me tell you a little side story. So when I went to London last, I've been there I go there, I love speaking at this one event. But this last time, throughout the last 2 years, there's been a woman who I bought her, it was an online course, but it was almost all audio. I loved her stuff. And she, one of those people who always use the same photo kind of thing. And when she found out I was going to be at this last one, she says, I'm going to be there too. I can't wait to meet you. We're going to give you a big hug. So the end of the first thing, I get off stage, and this woman comes up to me and she goes, "Steve," and I'm like, "Hi," and in my mind I'm thinking, "Who the hell are you?" And she tells me who she is, and I'm like, "Oh my God!" And I give her a big hug. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, she looks nothing like her 20-year-old photo, right? And I felt kind of like, I don't know, if we can't be authentic with ourselves and honest with ourselves, how can we expect our clients or a future kind of community to trust us entirely also? And it's not, I'm not saying she did anything wrong per se, but to me, it just seems like, why not celebrate who we are, where we are now? We're going to attract the right people anyway.
Totally. Well, so I want to highlight a couple things that you just said, because I think that were super, super important, really valuable. One of them, what you said, was really kind of taking into consideration all the plans that you have, like how you're going to launch a program or how you want to use your pictures to develop your brand. Like, even if you're not that planned out that you know exactly what program and whatever, but that if you have a sense of what it is that you want to have pictures that speak to that, which I think very few people think about it. You know, like when I had my photo shoot, I think people were making fun of me because I like ended up spraining my ankle because I was like leaping off tables, because I wanted these pictures with me with wings, and I wanted these pictures with me with flying, because I have this thing in this talk that I talk about, like, you know, like flying high and, you know, like really getting into performance and being able to make, you know, the impossible happen. And, you know, so for me, it's like I really wanted to have this. And interestingly, you know, of all the pictures that I have, those are probably the pictures that I've used the most, and the pictures that have drawn the most attention. Like, people are like, "Oh my gosh, I love this picture of you," blah, 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 you know? And so I think that was really important. Like, you kind of made the point really fast, but I feel like it's a super important point to really highlight and to be really thinking through, like, and it goes back even more so that pictures is just more than, you know, and you probably want to say a little bit more about this, because I know that you talk about this, of a lot of people think about, like, well, how am I going to dress, or what is it, how I'm going to portray, you know? And I'm always thinking, like, well, you get to be, like, the more you that you are, then the better, instead of, you know, like, let's put all this stuff that then you never wear and, you know, and then show up in that way. Anyhow, so you probably are going to go back, riff on that. The second point that you made that I really want to emphasize was the piece of that connects to this of being real, right? Of having pictures that are like updated, you know, that people can see your picture and can see you in person and totally recognize you, because it's like the same person.
And it something happens in the trust section of your brain and psyche when that does match, because the brain doesn't like confusion. The confused mind says no, as they always say, and that's the brain's lazy. Mm-hmm. It wants to match things up really quickly. So when I see you and it's what I expect, and I instantly like you more and trust you more and want to be your friend more.
I'm gonna say not lazy. I'm gonna say efficient, just because you know.
It doesn't like to work too hard. It's actually be efficient.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
And the thing about you jumping off the tables and those photos. Now, when you say people react to those the most, you know, they're not doing this. They're not looking in there and saying, you know, her hair crossed her forehead and that little thing that I can see. You know, they're not doing that. We do that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. We notice things about our face that in our bodies and things like that. Other people don't. It's the spirit and the energy and the message that's being told. You know, Oprah, she is a master at self-marketing, right? And visual marketing. And you won't find a bad photo of Oprah out there. It's really hard to find one because she has such a handle on how she releases her photos. Ah. But what's interesting is, up until about 5 years ago, she was the one who had the final approval of any photo that went into the magazine or to her web, anything that was printed. She had all the final say. And somebody, probably a really smart coach, told her, "You're too close to yourself," because everything's starting to look the same. Yeah. So what she did was she trusted someone else, an expert, to have the final approval of what was being put out there. And did you know that her approval rating, her numbers, you might say, went up 42%. People liked her, trusted her, bought more, subscribed more. They related more to Oprah when she let that go, because she was, although she had such a handle on it, she was still too close to herself. So
you know, it's funny because for years and years, what like it resonates with me. For years and years, one of the things that I obsess about is my hair. And for years and years and years, I straightened my hair. Like I worried about my hair, like, because I think it's unruly and messy and blah, blah, blah. And so I would straighten my hair, you know, and a few years ago, I just was like, I'm done with like trying to change. And so my hair is sometimes great and sometimes it's a mess, and it's just, it is what it is. Like, it's just, you know.
Well, and again, no one's going to say, oh my God, Elena didn't straighten her hair today.
No,
right?
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
That's the thing. Nobody cares, you know. I mean, it might be like, oh, your hair's sticking out funny today. Move on, you know, like it's not a big deal. So, so I'm kind of curious, you know, you said you were going to tell us what the 5 T's are best. So I'm sure that people are going to be curious about this one, because
the 5 T's, this is kind of a short list. There's lots of things that we can do. But this is when I'm called to speak or I'm on stage, and I'm going to do 2 things here. And I know for the people who are listening on audio only, you won't be able to see what I'm showing here, but I'll be able to give you an idea. And maybe you and I, Elena, can work on ways that if people want to get this, these 5 T's, they can download it or something like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So they can go to intuitivebusinessmastery.com/radio. And if they just sign up, then they're going to get the video recording. So intuitivebusinessmastery, all one word, .com/radio. And then if they sign up there, then they will have access to these for sure.
Okay. So can you see the slide?
I could see it.
Okay. So basically it comes down to this. When I'm talking with people, let's say, okay, great, Steve, we get it. We should use our photos. Now we know why we should use photos. We know that visual branding is important for people to make decisions about us, to like us, trust us, buy our products, follow us, grow our, okay, so fine, stop talking, show me how. So this is kind of what I can encapsulate into the 5 T's of looking great in photos.
And I'm just going to give you a little prompt of, you know, we have about, 14 minutes. So
okay, no problem. But thanks for keeping me on track. The first T is turn. What the camera sees first, the camera sees largest. And it has no idea, it doesn't have a brain to tell us logically that there are curves and what's in front of us isn't 2-dimensional. The camera. So our brain has to be told by the photo what to see. So if we turn, and what we have here on the slide is a woman who is facing the camera straight on, looks kind of square and boxy, and then if she's turning about 3/4 away from the camera, and we don't have to do the full-on model pose like this person's doing, but even turning a little bit from the camera, you can see that it gives her more curves in all the right places. She's positioning her body in such a way that it really does. And this is literally like 1 second she moved and we took another photo. Yeah, I mean, she went from boxy to hourglass. Exactly. Exactly. And what kind of the advice I give is if it bends, bend it. So she bent her knee a little bit. She's kind of bending back a little. Her arm and her fingers are soft. And she's also doing something here that I'll talk about later with her face that you'll see that helps with the photos also. So the first one is turn. Okay. Renee here is somebody who, when I photographed her, she's 6 foot tall. And she's gorgeous. And she had a problem with her nose. And she says, I don't like my nose. And I said, your nose is beautiful, but I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll do the turn. And I also got up slightly above her eye line and found the right angle for her face so I could photograph her the way, and look at her. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. I mean, she's gorgeous regardless, you know, but it's kind of a great example of how we are self-conscious about things that somebody new looking at the whole composition is not really picking up on. And this is no Photoshop at all in her face. Beautiful. Beautiful. And by the way, just a side note, about a year after these photos were taken, I did a photo shoot with her and her husband. 2 months later, he passed away. He drowned tragically.
Oh.
And when my wife and I went to his funeral, the first thing that Renee did when she saw us is she threw her arms out and gave us a huge hug and pointed to the screen and said, "Look, there's the photos on the screen. Those are," and she was so grateful that they were able to have those photos. So again, legacy and treasure.
Totally.
T 1.2 is part of Churn. This is for guys. If there's any men on the it's opposite for guys. You'll see that Kay, she's slinked in behind her husband Snowy there and did the turn, and she's kind of doing some other things that I teach people what to do on camera. She kind of slinked in and turned. He was turned also, but he probably shouldn't have. Guys, we should just square right off to the camera. The way our bodies are shaped, if we're square on to the camera's elbows out, we're going to look more masculine, and we're going to look the way that men should look in photos versus doing the whole turny thing. So don't fall for that, guys.
Great, love it.
Number 2 is tip. The tip of the head is an ancient sign of listening. That's also in the professional world, it's a sign of agreement. In the dating world, or in kind of that kind of world, it means acquiescence and approachability. And it's just much more of a friendly type of a gesture. So and all of these tips, guys, no pun intended, are designed for you to practice and find what works for you. Now, this photo was taken obviously from a very high angle, but you don't necessarily have to. This is a C-level executive of a company. This was her headshot prior to coming to me, and then this was what we did to make her a bit more approachable.
Beautiful.
She was always wondering why people weren't. She made people feel uncomfortable, she said.
So for people that are not able to see this, can you describe what you mean by tip? Because
Sure.
I'm able to see it, but I think that if people are just listening, they might be like, what exactly does that mean?
A slight tip just literally means you're turning your head slightly to one little bit to the left or to the right, and you don't want to lower your chin per se, but you're kind of turning your chin.
Like
and then
tilting your head.
Tilting and then coming forward just a little bit.
Uh-huh.
The thing about, some people think tip means they're scrunching their chin down, and what that does is it makes our neck heavier.
Mm.
So it's like little kids when they're being coy and they think they're being cute and they'll bring their head way down and their eyes looking up. That doesn't work for us adults, typically.
It's good to know.
And I'll often ask people, where's your chin? Because, and then the big difference. Here's another couple of photos, and people who download this will see just slight tips. Definitely approachable, friendly. It's not necessarily flirtatious. We don't want to go there always unless we're doing Match.com kind of photos. And then the big one, this is the one that people tell me has affected their lives the most. And it's even gotten, since my last name is Cozart, it's gotten this nickname called the Cozy Turtle. So when I go around speaking, going back to other places, or if I've given workshops, this is the one that people say, this is the one that's changed my life in photos. The turtle is it's almost like tip, only you're not tilting your head to the side. You're bringing your head forward and slightly down.
Huh.
And yes, that in real life, you can't go around doing that in real life.
A little weird, yeah.
But in photographs, this will create a separation between your neck and your chin. It'll also pull your neck, any kind of weight in your neck, forward and bring it tighter. And then when you bring your chin slightly down, it masks any heaviness below your chin and between your chin and your neck. And also, depending on the kind of light that you're in, will create a shadow between your neck and chin to create that separation.
And I guess that's something that, and I am sure that, we don't have the time to get into it, but that it sort of depends on the shape of your face, that it would work really well for somebody that maybe has like less of a separation between like their chin and their neck, right? Like it's not quite as prominent, and you need to create that rather than.
Yeah, the benefits for people that have a heavier neck are obvious when you do this. The people who don't necessarily have a heavier neck, it still does create a separation. And of course, because the camera sees it first, it sees it the clearest, and it creates a nice, beautiful look. This woman in this photo, she doesn't have a lot of heaviness in her neck. I had to bring her chin backward and then forward, and you see a shadow there under her neck. Yep. This is horrible flash lighting, and it still works.
Yeah, and it's a huge difference. Huge
difference. Here, the camera is below the eye line of the person, and in the next photo I got about 3 feet above her. And she did the turtle, and of course any heaviness in her neck went away. And again, no Photoshop there to make it look thinner. That's what we did. Yeah. So having the turtle combined with a camera person who is slightly above you or even a couple feet above your eye line will help with that. If anyone ever gets below your eye line, I don't care who you are, it typically won't be as flattering as it would be if it's above your eye line.
Right.
The fourth T is tuck. And this is going back into, if it bends, bend it, wearing the right clothes under your clothes. And then also knowing that if you, putting your weight on your back foot, being able to move that front foot forward and backward. What we have here in the slide is Erin, who's a fantastic graphic designer, straight onto the camera in one of my workshops. And then the next day we did some photo shoots. Same girl, had her hair straightened, and then there's no change in Photoshop. There's a filter on for the color. That's the only Photoshop you might say I did on it. It's about how we position ourselves, tuck things in. We have to be careful that when we're top heavy or a little bit busty, we don't want to breathe in and hold it, because that just makes us feel bigger and look bigger. So, and then also, you know, it's just knowing how to tuck things up so that if that's what you're going for, that you have more of a shape, you know, recognizable shape in the camera.
Well, and I know that we don't have much time. We have about 5 minutes or so, but I know that this is what you do, and we're not having time for you to get into it, but just giving them advice about what they're wearing, you know, like one of the things that in that last picture, like she was wearing something that was really cutting her. Yes. It wasn't just how she was standing, but it was like really cutting her, versus the other was like all one color and very sleek. And I imagine that you are also giving them lots of advice and coaching regarding that. Yes,
simple is typically much better. Monochromatic, typically much better. Blues, teals, aquas, in that family of color, the eye loves to see those colors. They typically look best in camera. When you have too many accessories that are shiny or distracting, it pulls away from the overall impact that you're typically trying to make. Now, if you have a signature piece of jewelry or clothes that are part of your brand, yes, I would recommend that in some of your photos that's included. But stay away from shiny, reflective. I won't go into this slide here because I have one more T, which is tickle.
I love that.
Will you just freaking laugh and smile, for goodness sake? It's fun. It's designed to be fun. If you don't like your smile, a lot of people say, I don't like my teeth, or I don't like my smile. Kim here had what she called a gummy smile. And I said, okay, well, let's find a half smile. You know, let's find a smile that works for you, that works and that you're comfortable doing. And practice makes perfect, gang. We all have cameras. We all have ways to record ourselves. By the way, don't practice anything in a mirror, because you're not really getting the full picture. And you can't then go back and review. So if you're going to be practicing any of these skills, put your camera on video or have someone take your photo and practice them that way. So that way you can look to see what works for you. And you can, you know, when we look in the mirror, we're not actually seeing all of us. We're only seeing little tiny regions at a time. With a photo, typically we're able to see more of ourselves from the perspective of others. And it really does help us to practice and to get better at what we're doing.
Totally.
I've got a lot more slides here, but I know that we've got some time. But this is more, one real quick thing about groups.
Yes, please.
Groups, a lot of times we feel like we all need to kind of, well, right here is a photo of the photographers below the eye line of the people. And I did a big dramatic representation of that. But no one there looks attractive. What you want is to elevate, get the camera above the eye line of people. And even in this photo, everyone's kind of touching or they're kind of close. We don't have to necessarily all be touching in group photos. But I'll tell you this, the person in the middle typically looks the best, because they're the ones that are in the center, they're framed by everyone else, and they don't have to do all of those kind of posy things that people tend to want to do. Right. And then the people on the ends, and if you're the kind of person that joins a photo last because you don't want to be photographed, but people coax you into the photo and you're on the end, you typically could look bigger and wider than you normally look, because the camera, people on the end, you get distortion. And the way people kind of position their bodies when they're in the end, the camera doesn't necessarily favor that. So if you want to look good in photos, in a group photo, put your arms out and say, group photo, and everyone will fall in on either side of you. And here's a good example of people not necessarily having to all touch to be photographed and look good in a group photo.
But now you gave that advice, and now everybody's going to try to do it. So before we get cut off, Steve, this is really important. I want you to tell people how, like, how they can contact you, how they can, you know, get to work with you, like what, you know, this is really, really key.
You can email me if you want to ask me questions, or if you want to contact me, steve@stevecozart.com. It's very easy. I really prefer people want to reach out in a way they do it on Facebook. And it really sounds funny, but Facebook for me is my favorite way to interact with people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only is it community, it's also visual, and it's almost instantaneous. It's the way that I tend to communicate with people. So I'm, you know, /Steve Cozart if you're at Facebook, and I'm sure that you'll have that information, or I can give it to anybody. I travel all over.
SteveCozart.com. Steve@stevecozart.com.
Yeah, Cozart is the last name spelling. A lot of times people will do it with a K. But.
Okay, good.
And I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I speak, usually when I'm speaking at an event or photographing an event, I'll have photo shoots. For example, next week I'm going to be in Albuquerque. The week after that I'll be in Carlsbad. So there's lots of times where people will know where I'm going to be and schedule photo shoots.
Great. So it's giving us a warning for 90 seconds. So,
I'm giving it a go.
So it is really, really obvious that, I mean, we probably needed like a whole day, you know, like you probably need a whole day workshop. And I really would encourage all of our listeners to reach out to you, to connect with you, to follow you, to look at some of your pictures are really quite amazing. I think that you're sort of the celebrity photographer on our space, you know, and you just do such a great job and are so fun to be around. It's like, why wouldn't you want to hire Steve? You know,
I love what I do, and I love the people I work with. And that comes through in everything that we produce together.
Mm-hmm.
It's a teamwork effort. It really is fun.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate the kind words and all of this lavish attention. A whole hour. Wow, this is great. Thank you.
Well, it was a pleasure and a delight to have you. I really appreciate you joining me. And for our listeners, again, it's Steve Cozart with a C and a Z in the middle. And if you want to get access to that video, it's intuitivebusinessmastery.com/radio. And until then, defy the ordinary, become extraordinary. Dr. Estanol signing off. And